What time is it?
Tea time!
Oh, yeah!
And welcome back to Tea Time, episode 5. We're going to get today some NBA. I'm going to get into a little bit of a debate that everybody's been having a lot more lately than ever, which is the 96 Bulls versus this year's Warriors. I'm going to talk about some Duck collegiate sports, some NCAA football, and maybe a little bit of baseball. But let's get it started. NBA playoffs. We all basically doubted the Warriors. I mean, let's face it. Warriors go down 3-1. They look down. They look out. They look like they've maybe lost all hope. And if you're the Thunder, you even felt good after the Warriors won the first game They won Game 5, and the Warriors didn't look great beating you in Game 5. So Thunder had to have been pretty happy about that because they kept it close through and through all the way. So you're coming back home for a closeout game, Game 6, and an opportunity to defeat what could be arguably the greatest regular season team ever, which they have the record to show. But you drop it. You lose. You get beat. And you had the lead to go with 5 minutes to go. You had that lead, and you blow out the lead, end up losing by 8, and now you're facing elimination. The Warriors, the 73-9 underdogs, have actually forced the Game 7, which Game 7 means anything can happen. Just absolutely anything. This is not what you wanted if you're the Thunder. At all. Not what you wanted. You go to a Game 7 at Oracle, those are some pretty steep odds. If you're the Thunder, you're very disappointed, you're very down, but you are not out. If you're the Thunder, you have to regroup, and you have to realize and get back to what you were doing the first time around when you got to that 3-1 lead. Look at what the Blazers did that pushed them so far. You didn't let them dictate policy. Now, the Warriors are going to go off when they go off. That's just the bottom line. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. But if you keep doing what you can do, everything will fall into place. You have Durant, you have Westbrook. Keep playing your game, and you can really take it to these Warriors. Now, I've been saying the Warriors were going to make it to the finals. Of course, last Sunday, they weren't down 3-1 when I said it. But, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to say. But, I mean, they were down 3-1. They've now tied the series, and they get the finish at home. I can't pick against the Warriors. If I would have recorded this 2 days ago or last night, or not last night, but yesterday, I would have picked the Thunder. But I have to stay true with what I said before, and I think the Warriors have a chance at repeating their final. Going back, and they're going to be facing now the new East, or not new, but the East champions, which have been decided. The Cavaliers finished off the Raptors in Toronto in Game 6. I actually thought Toronto had enough momentum to maybe force a Game 7. I was clearly wrong. The Cavs kind of blew them out on their home court by, I think it was 30. It was quite a bit. So, which we all knew was going to happen. We knew the Cavs were going to be there. No one in the East was going to beat the Cavs. I mean, if we're really, really honest with ourselves, we can say the East is bad, but the fact remains the East is still not as good as the West. It's not as hard as the West. You have 2 teams in the West that would have been the 1 seed in the East. And then the East would be a 3 seed, but then the next few teams would have been West again. It's just, East is getting better, but it's still not quite there. They're not quite there. But now we have a big killer saying who the Cavs are going to be playing. I mean, the Warriors, everyone thought it was going to be the Thunder, and everyone's like, oh, the Cavs match up better against the Thunder, which might be true, might not. I probably would take the Thunder in that matchup. But Warriors finish strong with the momentum that they have. They finish through like I think they're going to finish through. It's going to be Cavs Warriors, and I'm going to stick with my original prediction and still say the Cavs are going to win it. I don't see the Cavs losing in the finals. Now, I could see this finals easily going 7 games. I doubt there'd even be close to a sweep. Like, I don't think there's ever going to be a huge lead. I think the biggest lead we might see is someone close out in game 6. Like, I think it goes 6 no matter what. Whether it's Cleveland cleaning it or closing out, or it's the Warriors closing out. No matter what, we will see game 6 in Golden State. There's no way we won't. And, I mean, it's remained to be seen, but LeBron James has really done marvelous things with this Cavaliers team. He's actually really adjusted his game this year, and I tip my hat to him. He's not just trying to be the best player in the world anymore. He's trying to make the best team possible. And he's done a great job at really adapting. They made a move and got rid of David Blatt to bring in Tyronn Lue, and I think it's really worked out for the best. I think Tyronn Lue has earned the respect of this team, and he's learned to use these players a lot better than Blatt did. And I think the combination of Lue and LeBron have really brought this team to its full potential. And the fact that they're able to basically steamroll the East really has benefited them. I mean, they have more rest than the Warriors and the Thunder by far. And, I mean, they benefited being in a weaker East. They had to go through a young Detroit team. Then they had to go through a Atlanta team that they've already beaten. And then, they faced another pretty young Toronto team that's never been there before. So really, they had a pretty easy path. Not to say the Warriors haven't had an easy path, but the Thunder sure as heck have not. Thunder definitely have the hardest path of all. And say the Thunder do end up beating the Warriors, and say the Thunder do beat the Cavs, they'll actually go down in history as a team that has defeated the best trifecta, I guess you could say. Because no team has ever beaten 3 teams with 65-plus records. And technically, actually, with the first 3 games, the Thunder will already have the record for beating the most teams with wins. I don't remember those numbers right off the bat. I heard it on the radio, but it's still impressive in itself. But they're still 1 game away. They still have to get that elusive 1 game, that closeout game. Closing out games is very, very tough. It's not an easy thing to do by far, unless you're Michael Jordan. But now, with that little hint of a segue, I'm actually going to argue my side of this big debate that's been going on ever since the Warriors made their start of their big run to go 73-9. And I have to pick a side, and the side I'm picking is the Bulls. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me. And if you disagree with me, go ahead. I'm fine with that. You want to debate me? I'll debate you all day. I'm taking Jordan and the Bulls. And I even have the stats and the numbers to show you why I'll take the Bulls. But, I mean, all right. You look at the Warriors. You look at their path right now. After going 73-9, you're going to look at their path to the NBA Finals and what they're going up against. And, I mean, I'm looking at the teams right now, and I'm about to tell you the teams, and I don't think it compares very well. I mean, they went in the first round. They got the Rockets, beat them 4-1. Second round, got the Blazers, beat them 4-1. This round, they have to go 7 to beat the Thunder. And then, who knows, they have to first beat the Thunder, but then they have the Cavs. That 95-96 Bulls team, their first round, they had to go through the Heat, and they swept them. But that was when it was only 3 games. You only needed 3 games, best of 5. In the semifinals, they went up against the Knicks. The East Finals, they went up against the Magic, who they also swept. And then the finals, they faced the Sonics. Now, a lot of people have been making the argument of who the Bulls exactly face, because you can make the argument the Warriors faced a lot better players, like did Jordan and the Bulls ever face a Durant-Westbrook combo? Well, maybe not, but I mean, if you compare across, the Warriors in the first round have the 41-41 Rockets, who start Beverly, Harden, Ariza, Montezumas, and Howard. And then you go over to the Bulls, who face the 42-40 Heat that have Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning, Rex Chapman, Walt Williams, and Kurt Thomas. I mean, I don't know which lineup you're taking there, but there's 2 definite Hall of Famers on one side, and then you have one of the best scorers in the NBA on the other. Then you move on to the second round. You have the 44-38 Blazers with Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Mo Harkless, Al-Farouq Aminu, and Mason Plumlee. And then you have the Bulls facing the 47-35 Knicks, who had Derek Harper, Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley, Patrick Ewing, and John Starks. I mean, I don't think that's a debate. I think you don't want to face that Knicks lineup. I think they're hands down better. I mean, they have one of the greatest centers to ever play this game on that team, and this Blazers team's really, really young. But, I mean, their record was only divided by 3 games. So, I mean, you can make a debate. And then you have the Thunder team that the Warriors are currently facing, which has Westbrook, Roberson, Ibaka, Kevin Durant, and Steven Adams. But then and they went 55-27. And then you go across to the other side to the 60-22 Orlando Magic, who had Shaq, Penny Hardaway, Dennis Scott, Horace Grant, and John Koncak. And then Horace Grant actually did get hurt game 1 and didn't play the rest of the series, so Nick Anderson took over. But still, you're taking Shaq and Penny. You want to make an argument for a duo for the Warriors, or compared to the Warriors facing Durant and Westbrook. I mean, Shaq and Penny, that's a pretty darn good duo. And I'm taking Shaq over everybody on this entire list right now. So I think definitely the Magic at the edge. They had the better record, and I think you could argue they had the better starting 5 just because of one guy alone. But then you get to the finals. If the Warriors were to make it, if the Warriors were to lose, obviously we wouldn't be having this argument anymore. But if the Warriors were to make it, they're facing the 57-25 Cleveland Cavaliers, who have Kyrie Irving, Iman Shumpert, LeBron James, Kevin Love, and Tristan Thompson. Where the Bulls ended up beating the Seattle Supersonics, who were 64-18. A pretty large margin of 7 game difference there, who had Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, Deflet Shrimp, Irving Johnson, and Hershey Hawkins. Irving Johnson got hurt, I believe, game 2 is what it was, but he got hurt and he had to be replaced. But, I mean, you may have arguably the top 3, top 4, top 5 players ever to play in LeBron James, but you have Gary Payton, who led his Sonics team to a pretty darn good record, and Gary Payton's arguably one of the best defensive players to ever play the game, especially at the point guard position, who happened to have won Defensive Player of the Year that year, and his Sonics. But, I mean, once again, there is debate in there. You can do debate, but the numbers, or should I say the records, show the harder path was for the Bulls, and the awards show the harder path was for the Bulls. And there's quite a few Hall of Famers on the Bulls side of things, and you only have one guaranteed Hall of Famer on the Warriors side of things, but also these teams are a lot younger. I mean, obviously the Bulls did this way, way back. So it's a lot harder to say, who's going to be a Hall of Famer and who is not. Who's to say Westbrook and Kevin Durant will be Hall of Famers, but they're 27, so it's kind of hard to say. But, I mean, looking on paper, it's hard to argue, going through Patrick Ewing, Shaquille O'Neal, Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway, and Gary Payton, compared to going through Damian Lillard, James Harden, LeBron James, and Durant and Westbrook. I mean, like I said, there is debate there, but as of right now, I think the Bulls kind of show they have a little bit harder of a path. But then to go on for these two teams or to face each other, here's the rosters, which might surprise you, might not. As we know, the Warriors run a pretty deep roster, but the Warriors go Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Harrison Barnes, Draymond Green, Andrew Bogut, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, Maurice Spates, Leonardo Barbosa, Anderson Varejao, and Hephaestus Ezeli. And then here's the Bulls side of it. Ron Harper, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Luke Longley, Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, Bill Wennington, Jed Bushler, Dickie Simpkins, and Randy Brown. Those are the 11 most played players on each team. And I don't know about you, but I didn't even know a few of these players existed on the Bulls side. Now, of course, you can make the argument we only know some of the players on the Warriors because we're watching today. But, I mean, it's definitely a top-heavy Bulls team, for sure. I mean, you have the starters. You have Harper, Jordan, Pippen, Roman, Longley versus Curry, Thompson, Barnes, Green, and Bogut. I think the Bulls arguably have a better starting lineup. But, I mean, you go to the bench, that's where it all changes. But then again, the Bulls use a lot more specialists, where the Warriors use a lot more versatility. But, I mean, you look at those lineups, definitely interesting, where you have the Warriors who have a few guys who could start on other teams, and you have the Bulls who probably don't. But then I broke down the stats for that season for both teams. Obviously, one game split between them. But it's actually very interesting if you go across the team stats across the way in the ranks, because it's closer in some than I thought and farther away in some than I thought. But I mean, you have field goals. Both teams were number one ranked. That kind of obvious. When you win the most games ever, you kind of have to be good offensively. Both teams were ranked third in field goals attempted. In field goal percentage, the Bulls were rated at 7, where the Warriors were 1. Then you have three-pointers. No surprise here, but the Bulls are 10 and the Warriors are 1, and the Warriors are 1 by a lot. Then you have 3 points attempted, 15 for the Bulls, rank 1 for the Warriors. 3-point percentage, 3 for the Bulls, 1 for the Warriors. None of those three-pointer stats surprised me at all. I would have been more surprised the Warriors weren't number 1. But then you go to 2-pointers. The Bulls were 3rd, and the Warriors are 16. And then you go to 2-pointers attempted. The Bulls are 4. The Warriors are 26. And then you go to 2-point percentage, 11 for the Bulls, 1 for the Warriors. But given how much fewer shots they take, they're probably mostly dunks and layups. And then free throws. Dead even at 22 for free throws. 22 for the Bulls, 23 for the Warriors on free throws attempted a game. That actually surprised me a little. Then you got 14 to 16 in free throw percentage. Bulls 14, Warriors 16. And then you go to rebounds. The Bulls were number 3 offensive rebounds. The Warriors were 21. But then you go to defensive rebounds. The Bulls are 12, where the Warriors are 1. And then you go to total rebounds, where both teams are 4. So they even out there. And then you go to assists. The Bulls are 5. Warriors are 1. A lot of really good offensive categories here for the Warriors. So it's, once again, no surprise. Same with the Bulls. Then you go to steals. The Bulls are 3, where the Warriors are 9. You go to blocks. You got 21 for the Bulls and 2 for the Warriors. That stat really surprised me. Then you got turnovers, where the Bulls were 4 and the Warriors were 24. 20 spots, and that's a really big difference I didn't think I would see either. And then personal fouls, the Bulls were 8 and the Warriors were 19, which also surprised me. I didn't think the Bulls would foul that much more. But if you go back and actually look for fouls per game, it's actually not that big of a difference. It's about 2 fouls. It's just everyone's clogged in the middle. Unlike turnovers, where it's actually pretty larger margin, I think about 6 or 7. And then overall points, to no surprise, both teams are number 1 in their respective eras, which makes, a whole lot of sense. I mean, that doesn't surprise anybody. But then to do my final little breakdown between these two to see if I can sway your mind between Bulls versus Warriors, you go to the big threes. And I'm comparing them directly for their stats and their awards first. I mean, you have Dennis Rodman, who's 34 that year, and his points per game were 5.5, his assists 2.5, rebounds 14.9, which was number 1 in the NBA. Steals per game 0.6, blocks per game 0.4, turnovers per game 2.1, 3-pointers per game is 0.05. Now, granted, he only attempted 27 and only made 3. And his fouls per game are 3. Then you have his field goal percentages at 48%, his 3-point percentage at 11%, and his free throw percentage at 53. I think I said free throw. 3-point, 11, free throw, 53. That sounds really very similar. I apologize. And then you have Draymond Green, who's 25, and his points per game are 13.9. Assists per game, 7.4. Rebounds per game, 9.5. Field goal percentage at 49%. Steals per game, 1.5. Blocks per game, 1.4. Turnovers per game, 3.2. 3-pointers a game at 1.8 and fouls per game at 3. And this 3-point percentage is 39 and free throw percentage is 69. Definitely advantage offensively. Definitely more well-rounded player in Draymond Green. The rebounds were a huge difference. The turnovers were a pretty decent margin in one. But, I mean, Rodman was never, as we know, an offensive guy. But he was more of a defensive guy and a rebounding guy. And, 15 rebounds a game is unheard of. I think Dwight Howard's best year ever when he was doing it was only 13. And then you have for awards, Draymond Green and Rodman were both All-NBA or All-NBA defensive first teams. And then Green was also All-NBA second team. Then we go on to the number 2s. Scottie Pippen, age 30. His points per game were 19.4. His assists, 5.9. His rebounds, 6.4. Steals, 1.7. Blocks, 0.7. Turnovers, 2.7. His three-pointers per game, 1.2. And his fouls per game were 2.6. Then you have his field goal percentage at 46%, 37 on 3%, and free throws at 68%, which really surprised me. I don't know why that was so low. I always thought he was a better free throw shooter than that. But then you go to Tristan, once again, my bad. Klay Thompson, who points per game, 22.1, assists per game, 2.1, rebounds per game, 3.8, steals, 0.7, blocks, 0.6, turnovers, 1.7, fouls per game, 1.9, 3 points per game, 3-pointers per game at 3.4, then his field goal percentage at 47%, his 3-point at 42%, and his free throw at 87%. Now, their stats, I have to say, were a lot closer than I thought they would be. Pippen is a little bit better rounded, and Klay Thompson's by far the more superior scorer. But Thompson made All-NBA third team, where Pippen made All-NBA first team and All-NBA first team defense. So defense definitely a factor there. But then we go to the big 2. The guys we talk about, the guys we all know. You have Michael Jordan, who's 32, who came out with 30 points per game, 4.3 assists per game, 6.6 rebounds per game, 2.2 steals per game. He fouled 2.4 times a game. He made 1.3 3-pointers a game. And his blocks were, I'm having trouble reading my writing, 1 a game. Then you have, his field goal percentage was 48%. His free throw percentage was 75%, which surprised me a little bit because his career average is higher than that. And then his 3-point percentage was 41. Then you have Curry, who's 27, who went points per game at 30.1, assists per game 6.7, rebounds per game 5.4, steals per game 2.1, fouls per game 2, turnovers per game 3.3, 3-pointers per game 5.1, blocks per game 0.2. And then you have field goal percentage at 50%, 3-point at 45, and free throw at 90. Once again, a little bit surprising on some of the offensive things, like the percentages shot-wise. But as we know, both these players won MVP this year. They both got All-NBA first team, but unlike Michael, Curry did not get defensive honors. Michael got All-NBA first team, which the numbers are very similar between the big threes on both these teams. I'm not doubting that. Both these teams are great. It's just a matter of splitting hairs and comparing them. The biggest difference between both big threes, which I think is a huge factor that no one talks about as much, is the fact that all 3 of the big 3 for the Bulls were all defensive first team. Not second team. All were all NBA first team. Draymond was for the Warriors, but just him. All 3, Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman, All-NBA first team, which is insane. There's only 5 of them, and they got 3 of the 5, which makes you wonder, if you were to play these 2 teams, I don't think it matters which rules you play by. A good friend of mine said the Bulls have never faced a team that could shoot threes like this. And I couldn't argue that. It's true. No one has been a better 3-point shooting team than this Warriors team. And I don't even think they can beat themselves. I think this is just one of those years where everything was falling. Everything worked. But here's the thing. Rules in the NBA today are a lot different. They allow you to shoot threes more because there's so many more ticky-tack fouls called and whatnot. The game's not nearly as physical as it used to be. And you could say, in which it's true, Bulls have never faced a three-point shooting team like the Warriors. But on the other side of things, the Warriors have never played a physically defensive team like that Bulls team. Because when you go back to those starting lineups, Ron Harper's 6'6". He doesn't have to guard Curry. He would guard Harrison Barnes. MJ would guard Steph Curry. And Steph Curry sure as heck's not guarding MJ on the other side of things. But you can't really, Curry will be guarding a point guard for once because Ron Harper's not really a scorer. But, defensively, it changes everything. Dennis Rodman would give Draymond Green fits because he can guard you on the 3 line. That's not going to scare him or defer him. And he's going to make sure Green's boxed out and going to get all those rebounds, which is going to frustrate Green. Green would get physical with Rodman, and Rodman would do it right back to him. And then you have Clay, who's never had a guy like Pippen guard him. Why? Because all the good defensive players are guarding Steph. For instance, Kawhi Leonard doesn't guard Klay Thompson. Kawhi Leonard guards Steph Curry. So they've never faced a team. You may have two of the best combo of three-point shooters in Klay and Steph, but you're going to have the best combo of defensive wings in Jordan and Pippen. Both guys who have won Defensive Player of the Year, as in they were the best defensive players for that entire year. And there's two of them. And they can stick with Curry. They can stick with Klay. It don't matter, interchange them. Who cares? Jordan used to love bringing the intensity on defense. I think people forget that. He wasn't just offensive. He was defensive-minded. He would get after you, and Curry doesn't do that well with that. Look what Westbrook's been able to do to him. Now, he's been able to beat Westbrook, too, but he ain't going to beat Jordan like he beats Westbrook. Jordan's 6'6". The only closest comparison to Jordan, he does face Kawhi Leonard, but I don't think Kawhi Leonard even has the tenacity Jordan have. You don't see that kind of tenacity, mostly because you get called for more fouls. And you could make the argument, the Bulls will be overly aggressive and the Bulls will foul and foul and foul and foul. Well, yeah, probably. If they adjust, then they're just going to score all day on everybody. If you think about it, who's going to stop them on defense? Curry ain't stopping anybody, and that's just a fact. And then you have Klay only can guard one of them, and he ain't stopping Jordan. He could probably stop Pippen, but then again, you have Jordan there still. Rodman's not trying to score, so do you keep Draymond Green on him? It's just one of those things where, like they say, you can't compare eras, which is true, which is what I'm trying to do. But you can't. You can't really actually compare eras. But if you put it all on paper, stat-wise, very similar teams. And for a reason. They both had the single season records. The Bulls did it first at 72-10. Then you have the Warriors come in and do it at 73-9. And they will both be the best two regular season teams ever. The Bulls were able to finish it off. Will the Warriors? The Warriors are in a little bit of trouble. If the Warriors end up losing to the Thunder, or the Warriors lose up to the Cavs like I think they do, I don't think you even have this argument anymore. Because who cares about a regular season if you don't finish the job? And Warriors, to me, haven't proven that. I wish we could bring these two teams in a time machine somewhere and let them play, because I think it could be one of the funnest games ever to watch. And it'd be funny to see the looks on guys' faces when they just go, who the heck is Dickie Simpkins or Randy Brown? Who are these guys? It'd be funny. But that's my take. I'm picking the Bulls. I'm always going to pick the Bulls. When you have the greatest player ever play the game, and then you have him and I'm taking him and his two for his big three over every big three I've ever seen. And other people would too. But that's why we have debate. That's why we do sports. That's why I do this podcast. You want to have debate. You want to voice your opinions. And that's my opinion, and that's my take. But, all right, we're going to switch gears here in a minute. But first, a word from our sponsors. Trent from Tea Time with Trenton here, our sports podcast, coming to talk to you about a nice little store at the Valley River Center called Got Socks.
Speaking of socks, put yours in the hamper.
No, I'm wearing them today.
You've worn them every day this week. week. You need to wash them.
That's why I bought them.
Get another pair.
Maybe I will. They're great socks.
Good.
Hey, will you make me some lunch?
What do you want?
I don't know yet. But they're located in the Valley River Center Mall at the east entrance right before the food court. Ma! Meatloaf! If you got needs, they got socks. Welcome back. Now, let's get into something again that I got into last week, which was the whole Baylor situation. We didn't know what was going to go down quite yet. It's kind of a really serious and not good situation in all. I mean, the players and what they're alleged of doing and what they're on trial for doing, the sexual assaults and harassments, and what looks like to be football over what's right. They filed Art Briles. Briles is gone. The athletic director's fate has not been decided yet. Obviously, the players who were part of these allegations didn't get picked up by NFL teams. It's just a messy situation and something that you'd like to think could have been prevented. And when you look back at what happened, I mean, Art Briles brought this team out of nowhere. They were the laughing stock for the longest time in the Big 12. They were usually the ones getting beat down 73-3. And then Art Briles came in, brought RG3 with him, and really changed things. They got a $5 million stadium now built. You know the stadium that basically Art Briles built, and they've been a perennial contender. And they're the 5th overall ranked team right now. And so, I mean, it just begs to wonder that question of, what's important in life. And I don't think football should be on top of that list, even if you're in Texas. Even if you've been the doormat, this should not have been going on. The fact that there's possibilities of coaches intimidating the women who were assaulted or harassed into not doing anything and getting them to just let it be just so they can continue winning football is just absolutely despicable. I mean, we're not quite sure what the smoking gun is, but the fact that they got rid of Art Briles so quickly makes it think that we don't know the whole story yet, that they're trying to get ahead of it. They're self-reporting. They self-investigated. They're trying to prevent what could be a death penalty, which Penn State didn't get a death penalty, and that was pretty appalling. But, I mean, you never know nowadays, and this is up there and bad, and it's just a shame. You want to think that you want to believe football isn't a priority, sports isn't the priority at most schools, but sometimes it is, and things like this come out, and it's just a shame. But moving on from the sad side of things, we're going to move on to the duck pond. And the Oregon men's basketball team, let's start with them, got some huge, huge news. Tyler Dorsey, Dylan Brooks, they're back, baby. This team that went to the Elite Eight and lost to Oklahoma is basically all back. Every last one of them almost. The only one that we're waiting to hear from is Dylan Ennis, who gets ruled on in a few weeks. And if he comes back, I mean, maybe not top talent-wise, but this is arguably the most loaded team in the country right now. I mean, you have all your starters but one come back. Your starters right now will be Casey Benson, Tyler Dorsey, Dylan Brooks, Jordan Bell, and Chris Boucher. And then coming off the bench, you have the possibility, who's not quite in there yet, but you have Dylan Ennis. And then you have incoming Chris Boucher 2.0, Cavell Brigby Williams. Then you have Michael Cage Jr., who's an incoming freshman. Peyton Prickard, the highest recruited or highest ranked player to come out of Oregon in quite some time, coming in as well. Then you have Keith Sims, the number one recruit in Washington, coming in. We got both top recruits of the Northwest. And then, of course, Kendall Small still here. Ronan Sorkin is still here. That's a team that can go pretty deep in the lineup, especially if they all contribute right away, they all play right away, which obviously doesn't always happen. I mean, you lose the leadership of Elgin Cook and Dwayne Benjamin, but you gain so much talent, and getting Dylan Ennis back could be huge in filling that void, as well as obviously getting Dylan Brooks and Tyler Dorsey back. I mean, hands down, Oregon's a favorite to go to the Final Four next year, and I don't think there's even argument to that right now, because you return 90% of your team and gain new, good, shiny players. you're going to be competitive. You're going to be highly thought of, and can they handle the pressure? I mean, they won the outright Pac-12. They won the Pac-12 tournament, and now they're bringing the lumber. They're getting ready. They want to make a run. They're hungry. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Oregon baseball kind of ended a disappointing season. I mean, they were highly sought after, highly thought of. It just ended up falling up short. The Pac-12 really ate them alive this year. But at least they got to hang their hats on a very late series win, actually going in and beating Corvallis for the first time in Corvallis, the Beavers, since bringing baseball back, which is a huge step forward. And it happened to be George Horton's 1,000th win, which is a big deal. But this team needs to improve. It is very young. It's very young. And they have nowhere to go but up. Future's bright, but just, end to a season that you had high expectations for. But meanwhile, on the other side of things, you have the women's softball team who hosted the regional, dominated through, are now hosting the super regional and are one win away from going to the World Series tournament, having a legit, real shot at winning the whole thing. The Pac-12 was, once again, it was just heavy deep. I mean, heck, in the Super Regional Finals, there was 4 Pac-12 teams. You had Washington, you had Oregon versus UCLA, and I might be having this one wrong, but I think Arizona State's the other one. Or no, Arizona. Sorry, I apologize. It's Arizona is the other one. My bad. But the women are looking good, and let's see if they, can bring one home for us. They came up short a few years ago, came up short last year. They're just getting better and better and better, and hopefully they can bring this one home this time. And then, of course, you have Duck Track and Field, who were the most recent national champs and looking to repeat again in the outdoors. Devin Allen, the Oregon football player, who does track and field as well, has some Olympic dreams. You have the trials coming up here pretty soon at Hayward Field. And hopefully track and field keep it going. Oregon sports looking really good, doing really good, and hopefully they keep all that going. But on to kind of a more important topic in a way, or maybe not more important, but something I kind of want to discuss a little bit. Mark Helfrich is getting kind of a bad rep right now. I mean, he's missed out on 2 recruits, 1 in-state. Or no, I take that back. He missed out on 2 in-state top recruits, missed out on another recruit, and then lost Ryan Kelly, which I believe I talked about a few podcasts back. Losing Ryan Kelly wasn't as big as people think. We're not as hurting at quarterback as we once were. But, I mean, losing an N-star, 4 or 5-star D-tackle that to Washington hurts. Losing a big outside linebacker we're going for to Washington again hurts. And losing, I believe, the number 1 in-state linebacker to USC also hurts a lot. Now, if history has shown us anything, commitments this early don't usually stick, don't always stick. It all depends on the kids. And I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon works their magic and might find a way to flip at least the 2 Oregon kids before the start of next season. I mean, you never know. Washington's, really coming around, really coming strong, and definitely are up there for the favorites to possibly win the Pac-12 North and Pac-12. Them, Oregon, Stanford, the usual suspects there. But Oregon recruiting is not doing that poorly. We've never started off fast. For everyone that thinks, recruiting's down, it's not. Oregon had some very good classes for quite a few years, but at the same time, you have to remember sometimes the guys we want aren't rated very highly. And not every player we want is a top talent. We have a lot of things that we look for in particular. And just because we don't have, 4 and 5 stars out the wazoo like USC and Florida and Texas and all of them doesn't mean we don't have good recruits. Like, people forget Marcus Mariota was a 2-star. Charles Nelson was a 2-star. Taj Griffin was a 4, got dropped to a 3-star. Ifo Ekrealamu, 3-star. Tyler Johnstone, 3-star. Tyrell Crosby was a 1-star. Connie Benoit was a 1-star. And we have a few no-stars. I believe Brandon Bear was one of them. Taylor Hart was a no-star, I believe. I mean, there's just guys that, turn out to be very solid, very good players for us. One of them the greatest player in Oregon history, and they weren't rated very highly. And you got to remember, our coaches do their homework. They know what they're doing. They've done this for years. And the fact every time something doesn't go our way, everyone cries, fire Helfrich, bring back Chip Kelly. And I just think it's ridiculous. Mark Helfrich has done one hell of a job here, and to think that recruiting is just going so poorly is it's clear people aren't really paying attention to what's what and not paying closer attention to how it is. Dylan Mitchell is a 3-star and did really well in the spring game, but he was voted the Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Tennessee, and he was a 3-star. There was other 4 and 5 stars out of Tennessee, but the 3-star wide receivers who got Player of the Year. So to think, we're not getting the right guys, we're not getting good enough guys, well, you have been watching Oregon football. We find those diamonds in the rough and we turn them and we shine them bright. But, we're used to winning. And when we're not winning, you look for anywhere and everywhere to blame. And that's just human nature. But time to get to our segment, Meet the Fan.
Well, hi, I'm Dwight Lee. I'm an All-American out of Michigan State University. Played professional football with the 49ers and Atlanta Falcons in the National League. And I love sports. I love football, baseball, basketball, golf, and track and field. And I like to watch the women play basketball and gymnastics. So I root for my teams. Sometimes I get fanatical. I hate to see a team I'm rooting for lose because it'll give me an attitude for the day, and I try to avoid that. But sports are good for your mind, for your body, for your spirit. They stimulate you watching them and playing them, and a person who has an active life tends to live longer and can endure car wrecks and anything else that go on. I was just thrown from a vehicle, hit by a car, and got up and walked away from it. So but only because my body has been trained and put into a condition where I can endure those things, and the grace of God. So right on. I'm a sports fan. I love the Ducks, and I root for them all the time. But I am a Spartan, Michigan State.
Welcome back. That was Dwight Lee. I don't know if y'all remember him from my first episode. I did an interview with him. Very interesting guy. But moving on now, get a little bit of NHL. This year we have the San Jose Sharks going up against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And it's going to be a very interesting one. Can the Sharks end this run since 2009 where it's only been the Penguins, the Blackhawks, the Boston Bruins, and the Los Angeles Kings who've won? No one else has won. Kind of similar to the whole NFL where we haven't seen a Super Bowl in 15 years that hasn't had Roethlisberger, Brady, Manning, or Flacco in it. But can the San Jose Sharks shake this little curse they have of always choking in the playoffs and finally get one and, beat the Penguins? And my prediction, I think they will. I don't know. I'm feeling a little love here for them. I like the way they fight all the way through. I like the way that they've been handling themselves, and I hope to see them break that and actually come through. But now to end the show, we're going to talk a little bit of some baseball. Something of kind of a touchy topic. Not really. I mean, we talked about Rufus Odor's pitch. Well, we had another situation come up between the Mets and the Dodgers. If we all recall last playoffs, Chase Utley did a slide that made the Chase Utley rule where you can't slide through anymore and broke Ruben Tejada's ankle, which some feel that was a big part of why the Mets lost the World Series. I don't think so. Ruben Tejada's pretty decent shortstop. You might recognize his dad, Miguel Tejada. But he's pretty good defensively, but offensively he's really not that good. But, I mean, he's a decent player nonetheless. But Utley finally is playing in this series, and everyone was wondering if Syndergaard was going to throw at him. And a lot of people believed he would for payback for Ruben Tejada, which, baseball rules. You got mine, I get you. But, it'll be interesting to see, or it was interesting to see, I guess. Syndergaard didn't actually peg him. He threw it behind him early in the game and got tossed, which ultimately probably was the demise of the Mets, because when you have your best pitcher go out, and I believe it was the third inning, I could be wrong, third or fourth inning was very early. That's not a good thing. That's not a good look for you. And this whole waiting forever to get payback, with the whole beaning Batista for flipping his bat, getting Utley for hurting Tejada's ankles, or breaking his ankle, I guess. I mean, it's all kind of silly at this point. I mean, I don't see the point anymore. Getting the payback, I get it. Baseball's tradition. But, I mean, I go back to the whole hashtag make baseball fun again. I mean, what does this have to do with making fun? Oh, you're teaching kids to bean guys to get back at them? How about this? Beat them on the scoreboard. That's how I've always looked at it. I don't know why you have to get back at them and beat them and hurt them. I mean, you don't want people to get hurt. You want people to have fun and play. But, I mean, that story's now over. It's done with. Probably won't hear anything about it. And I'm sure we'll hear more stories later about pitchers beating people or something happening and they want to get payback the next year. I mean, right now the Royals are in a little bit of trouble. They lost two of their better players, in Alex Gordon and Mike Moustakas, all in the same play. You had Moustakas tear his ACL, and Gordon broke his wrist, I believe, or fractured it. Gordon will be back, but Moustakas will not. Moustakas has been having a pretty nice year. So a repeat of our champs doesn't look so hot right now. But that's all I have for you today. Hope you had fun listening. Check us out on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook, Snapchat. Our YouTube channel is officially up. And starting this week, we're actually going to start posting some videos like our segments Money Where Your Mouth Is, where Robert Brown and I will be running 40 times to put our money where our mouth is, as well as shooting free throws to either show or not show how hard it really is to hit a free throw. Thank you, DeAndre Jordan, for that. And then, of course, we're going to have our Crystal Ball sports predictions with Sensei Pong. But it'll be exciting stuff. And I hope you continue listening, and I hope to hear back from you. Give me some debate. Give me some ideas. I'm all for this. And I will see you next time.
What time is it? Tea time!